everyone, it's Stephanie.
This is Emily.
And today we are back with a winter reads video where winter is almost coming. Winter is coming. Game of Thrones.
Winter's already there.
Yeah, I know it's true. But you know, winter's coming for a while. So anyways, we had picked a few books that we think will be great for the winter time. This time around I had picked 4 books.
I picked 3.
And my approach for this was basically I want to pick books. I kind of went your route last time where I picked books that are like, you know, being published that I highly anticipate for winter. So
yeah, and I did the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I took your approach and decided to choose books that I thought were more of the were more resonant of like the actual season itself and like things that I would recommend people to actually reading because of that.
My pick for this time around is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Holly Black is a really well-known fantasy writer in the YA genre, and she's notorious for writing about fairies usually. So this book, The Cruel Prince, is also about that as well. And I'm really anticipating it because I've enjoyed her previous novels in the past, so curious to see what she's come up with this time.
So my pick is The Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough by Mark Manson, and his book in general is just kind of like a self-help guide, but more of a companion read for incidences where like you particularly feel like you don't really know how to really think out of the box. And so at that particular time, if you read it, it's really funny commentary about like a lot of things in life. And there's so many anecdotes in there that really help you kind of take in perspective as to, oh yeah, that's actually totally true. And given the fact of the nature of the name, you can tell that like he has a very funny way of writing about it. So I would definitely recommend this with a cup of coffee or hot chocolate.
My next book is actually a second novel of this author called Before I Let Go by MARIEKE NIJKAMP. I'm so bad at her name. But basically, if you have read her previous book, which is about a public school shooting, her second, which we both enjoyed a lot. So the second book that she wrote is called This Is Before I Let Go, and it's a mystery this time. I enjoyed her writing style previously, and I'm really highly anticipating this novel just because I'm curious to see what she has in store this time. It's basically about a girl who realized that her best friend like was murdered or like dies or something, and it's like she's very confused because no one wants to talk about it, so she thinks there might be like a hidden story about what actually happened.
And so for my pick, I chose The Mindhunter by John E. Douglas. It is actually it's already been made into a Netflix series, and the story itself is actually it's definitely nonfiction. It's talking about the details of how the FBI forensic system eventually came up with the coined term serial killer. So a lot of what we understand today as to what serial killers are at the time wasn't actually well known as a type of science or even a type of branch of forensics. So a lot of like if you even watch Netflix series, you'll see that there's a lot of interesting like developments that come along with how people try to find people who do wrong, you know, criminals. And a lot of it, what's really enticing about this particular book is that it's just fascinating for me to sort of see how people systematically try to understand what is right and what's wrong, how people try to catch serial killers without actually becoming serial killers themselves, because you can only imagine like the strain of having to think crazy if you're not crazy, you know. So I think in general it's a very interesting but very intense read, and kind of in the nature of like mystery, but obviously way like much further in the spectrum of in terms of intent of the scale. But I would say that would be my pick too, because I think it's just such an interesting topic.
Well, my next book is very different from our past two.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
It's called Someone to Love by Melissa de la Cruz, and it's actually kind of funny because I had talked about her previous books.
I was looking at you.
Yeah, and I didn't. It's the the Blue Blood series, and it's like a 7-book series.
Yeah,
and I remember distinctly that I did not like the last few books. She started out well, and then the stages kind of got draggy and whatnot. But because this book is a standalone, I think I will enjoy it as well. And the cover is really pretty. But basically, the book is kind of like a self-identity novel. So I I do enjoy those type of books, so I'm curious to see what she's written.
Yeah, you're always a sucker for pretty covers.
Yeah, this cover's really pretty.
So for my last pick for the winter reads, I have chosen The Power by Naomi Adelman. It is actually the most recent. It was like the most recent curated like book of the month pick for me.
Yeah, I heard a lot of things about that.
Yeah, and for me, I got to know Naomi Adelman as kind of a writer, not really, because you'll understand the nature of why I said that through the Zombie Runs app, which is kind of like this like podcast like running app that you can have on your smartphone. And so like she writes the entire script for that series. So when I found out that she wrote an actual novel, I was like, oh, of course, I'll definitely try to read this. And so the story itself, I haven't read it yet, is about women who end up harnessing this sort of telekinesis like power or what something like that that's a little bit beyond like the 5 sense domain that we're used to, and how they go about using it in this world. And I actually was really interested in this book, as even with the cover, now that you mention it, because it is red and black, and the thing that reminded me the most about when I saw that cover was The Handmaid's Tale. Because The Handmaid's Tale, the cover is very distinctively red, black, and weirdly like a beige, like gold. And it just struck, for some reason, that imagery just kind of clashed, and like it made sense. And so for me, like, I think these two books are very interesting to read together, because at least so far from what I understand about The Power, it's very much about like women having more than what they do now, right? Versus like The Handmaid's Tale, which is a story of like women oppression, and like if you've watched like the Hulu series, it's in the nature of like what happens when women are stripped of a lot of their rights that they have today, versus like The Power, which I think is almost like a flip-flop. So I think in terms of comparative literature, those two are very good together.
But my final pick for this video is actually A Conspiracy of Stars by Olivia A. Cole. I actually do have this book in digital form, so I am really anticipating this book. I'm debating if I should read it quickly or not, because it is a duology, and therefore I hate waiting for the second book. Like, I always forget what happens in the first book or like the previous books, and then I have to like kind of rehash.
Well, it's normal,
like, you know, because usually it's like years later or something. Anyways, even if it's months later, I'd be like, what? But basically this book is a sci-fi fantasy novel, and basically it's essentially my two favorite genres. So I'm really anticipating this novel. It's about basically like the human race sharing like on the different planets and studying these other inhabitants and whatnot, and it's really interesting. I don't want to give too much into detail because sci-fi books are all about the setting, and the setting is quite important in this book, it seems. So I don't know, I'm really excited for this book. Maybe there's some romance involved as well.
Sounds really interesting to me.
Yeah,
it really does.
I mean, that's it for winter reads. Do let us know if any of these books are on your TBR list or not, and if you're anticipating to read them, especially for my picks since they're not out yet.
I also have a Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram account, and we do also run a podcast with curated picks from our YouTube channel that you can also listen to on the go.
But yeah, that's it for today, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.